So we start in 3, 2, 1. Hello, everyone. We're pleased to welcome you to our loved webinar, Cybersecurity Covid19, a new cyber landscape, with two heavyweights of the cybersecurity industry in Luxembourg, Christophe Bianco, managing partner of Excellium, and Pascal Steichen, CEO of securitymadein in Luxembourg. A little bit about the background. Pascal holds a master's degree in astrophysics. He started his career as a software engineer. In 2002, he joined the Luxembourg government, first at the task force in Luxembourg and afterwards at the Ministry of Economy. Today, Pascal is CEO of securitymadein in Luxembourg, the structure behind the main information security initiatives of the Luxembourg government. He's also lecturer in information security at the University of Luxembourg and is long-standing board member of several critical entities fostering awareness around cybersecurity in Luxembourg and in Europe. Christophe is co-founder and the managing director of Excellium Services, founded in 2012. The company has currently 120 employees in 7 countries across Europe and Africa. Christophe has been vice president and general manager of Qualys, a worldwide leader in computer vulnerability management solutions, and he's associate professor at Contingency, where he speaks at many conferences on the topic of information security issues. On the moderator side, we have my colleague and co-host Alex Panican, head of partnerships and ecosystem development at Loft. Alex graduated from the University of Quebec in Montreal, where he used to teach strategy and marketing as an associate professor. Before joining Loft, he's been a serial entrepreneur, and at Loft, he's been master of ceremony, interviewing fintech entrepreneurs and thought leaders all over the world from all walks of life. Thank you very much, sirs, for being with us today, and the screen is yours. Alex, please.
Thank you so much, Anthony. Thank you for the introduction. I've got the best job in the world and the best buddies. Thank you, Anthony, and for making it happen. So why do we do this webinar? As I usually say, we don't do webinars for the sake of doing webinars, but we've seen a huge increase in fears that maybe they are justified or not. But everybody has read the news regarding cyber attacks on some major key players in the Luxembourg ecosystem. And we have, I would say, a daily question from our community regarding how should they protect themselves, which kind of platform they should use. Some of our partners cannot even join us for webinars because the company is asking not to use Zoom. So yes, just to make a sense of all this fear and make a clean plate for everybody, we asked 2 experts from the industry, Pascal and Chris, who are veterans in the cybersecurity industry. That doesn't make them younger, to tell us everything about the threats, but also maybe the best practices, how we should protect ourselves, how we should protect our companies and our partners. So I will start with you, Pascal. Please be free to scare us a little bit regarding the threats.
Okay, thank you very much, Alex, for the introduction, and Anthony. Let's just allow me to start my slides. Now you should see them. Voila. So yes, as always, I have the pleasure to scare you a little bit about the threats, about what's going on in cybersecurity at the moment. And we are in this very special moment of this COVID crisis. So you are all probably interested in knowing or in getting to know more about, is this crisis situation, is it worse, is cyber more, are there more attacks, are there more threats, etc. So allow me to give you the perspective from our side, so from the side of our agency, who is following mainly the private sector. But also, I would say, we are also involved in public sector, but let's look at the private sector aspects. So if we look at the incidents overall during this year, I would say we see really a huge amount of phishing attempts. So phishing has really become, and this is not I would say, not a trend only for this year, but it started already last year. But phishing has become once again, the most attractive and most used attack vector of the criminals. So you see in the statistics that this year we have more than 60% of incidents that were reported were related to phishing. But we always, of course, also see other things. You have probably read in the press that one of the biggest supermarket chains has been attacked, that other companies have got cyber issues, and which were, I would say, not always phishing. So there are still other attacks which are out there, specifically ransomware attacks, which are still very prominent, but in quantity very, very less. So they're very more professional. So in quality they are tougher or higher, but in quantity they really went down since a few years. That we have I would say there is no special race due to the crisis as such. But
if I may just ask you a quick question, Pascal, what's a phishing attack? Because I think it's the major. If you can just quickly for the ones who don't know.
Okay, thank you for this question. Indeed, yeah, we often use terms which are quite normal for us. So phishing is based on email. So it's basically an email that you get, which tries to make you click somewhere, make you put your password on a fake website, or make you open a document that is attached to that email. So it tries to phish something from you, be it the password, be it whatever access to any platform that you might have access, and via that way then getting access into the company or into the bank or yeah. So in the very beginning this was a lot used to try to attack the clients of banks to get access to the bank, but nowadays this technique is being used for everything, for every kind of thing, and it comes in a lot of different fashions. So
what do you see as a common phishing attack? Maybe Chris can also maybe respond. If you see an increase with the COVID-19 in the phishing attacks, is it a specific, let's say, tactic?
Yes, so that's on a slide a bit further down, but no problem. So what we have seen a lot related to COVID-19, related to coronavirus, is specifically phishings using that term, using coronavirus, using COVID-19 topic to attract the attention of people. So for instance, dedicated website where you can get money from the government, for instance, but obviously fake. Fake websites or fake documents, fake offers of very cheap masks to buy. All that kind of things, or even emails that impersonate Red Cross or the World Health Organization and sending these mails out to people and asking, yeah, you can donate to the World Health Organization to help find the vaccine and phishing. So all these things we have seen around the COVID-19 related thing at the moment. And also what is still continuing is this extortion email. So that's kind of a combination of phishing and ransomware, but dedicated to people, which generally says that you you get an email that from a criminal. He said, I am criminal. I have found your password. Here it is. They put the password in the email, and they say, and that's why I have access now to all your computer and to all your things. And I have seen on what websites you have gone during the night, etc. So it tries to get to the, I would say, the very personal things of people, and then extortion them. Just if you don't want me to publish all this about you and being shameful afterwards, then pay me some money. So that's often use topics or situations which are big in the press to get the attraction and the attention of the users. And this, allow me to come back to the slide about notifications by sector. that we have seen, which specifically addresses this trend that we see, and you see it in the statistics. So from 2015 to 2020, you see a real move from, I would say, attacks on all different sectors to individuals. So individual people get out of the statistics very, very high since more or less 2 years, as you can see, especially last year, and this year we see it a lot, which is specifically related to these mechanisms of attacking the people, not the company. So the criminals, they tend to try to attack the people and then try to get into the company. So this has two I would say, very important things. One is important and I would say downsides. One is that we on our side lose, I would say, a certain view about what sectors are targeted, because it's the individual people that contact us and they not always tell us in what company they work, because they do not want to expose that, because they are ashamed about the fact that someone might have seen something about them doing in their private life. And on the other side, especially in today's situation where everybody is at home, is remote, is, I would say, confined, or where the exchange is less ongoing. Well, this, I would say, makes this specific type of attack even more efficient. So that's the two, I would say, main constats that we can see through this, and which are linked to the current situation also.
When
it is very important to, yes, sorry.
Yeah, industry, 27% of attack on the industry. What's the industry exactly? Is what? It's retail, it's construction, is?
I would say it's everything which is not finance.
Okay, perfect.
Let it put like that. So our categories are very broad to because being a small country, if we would put it more precisely, if we would say retail, aerospace, etc., well, you would be able to identify individual companies, which we do not want. So it's basically finance and the others, so to say, and then institutions and individuals. So it's however, medical, for instance, is in the other section. So if you have seen 2019, there is a little 0.6% of medical specific attacks. This was some few incidents, and today we don't see any specific attacks on the medical sector as of today, which is I would say is good. So let's cross fingers that it is like that. If we look at the side of the justice, so the cybercrime cases that have been opened, you see that there is also I would say an evolution, but it's as often it's vague. So in 2019, we had close to, I have to move my window here. Yeah, but we have somewhat 900 cases that have been opened at the Justice Department last year. So if we compare this to the number of notifications that we get, we are a factor 10 of difference. Okay, so that's also, I would say, something which is interesting to see.
And do you think it's because people think that cyber criminals are just immune to justice and it's going to be a waste of time, or how do you explain that?
I would say this is an argument that some use. What, however, I would say we see mostly is that, and what is more relevant with this comparison, is that cybercrime is not local. So the criminals are most often not local people or linked to any local activities. And then I would say on the justice side, they will rarely open a case only if it is a very, I would say, a very critical, a very important case, because they do not have the mandate locally. They have then to transfer it to a place where the criminal would sit or where the victim would sit. So that depends a bit on how this works.
Thank you, Pascal.
Okay, so let's move on. I talked about these specific COVID-19 things. Yeah, what you also have seen is fake tracing apps. So there is this topic about tracing apps being discussed about, and even if we do not yet have a tracing app, nor in Luxembourg, nor in Europe, nor in other places, except a few exceptions in Asia, there are already fake tracing apps. Because again, things that are discussed a lot, that are topics that are talked about a lot in press or on social networks, is something that criminals use relatively fast to, I would say, to surf on that wave. Then about video conferencing and cybersecurity. So we are in work, we use video conferencing here. So the big question is Zoom or not to Zoom? You mentioned it in the beginning. Zoom, as many of you have probably heard about or read about, had some security issues. And they had to struggle, I would say, or had to react very fast to fix them, to adjust their security posture, etc. So, and as you said yourself, some companies reacted with, okay, let's don't use Zoom anymore. The British government did not, I would say, do that, and they still use it. And even if their security agency themselves declared that they should not use it, it was still done. So that's the difference between what is really a technical issue and a technical problem, and what is the reality of business and of doing things, and also how to do things. So when one talks about video conferences, I would say there are three main risks, basically. The one is that data information gets leaked by someone listening into a closed conference or meeting, someone unauthorized or someone which should not be there, and he gets information, he gets data by listening. Second risk is, I would say, sensitive information or data goes over, obviously, servers that are not under your own control, so which are at the provider. So you have to give a certain trust to the provider if you want to use such systems to do, I would say, secret or sensitive meetings, which in today's remote working mode is, I would say, has become the normal. So that's definitely a question that everybody should address and look into, and then decide by themselves: do we take this? Is it too big? Is it not too big? Can we take it or not? So that I would say that's an individual decision. And then obviously, video conferencing is software. Software has flaws. So a software flaw and a vulnerability can give access to a criminal, to every individual's computer that is connected to that system at a certain point of time, if this vulnerability is being exploited. But I would say that's something which is true for every software. So these questions, these points, these questions, everybody should, I would say, address them all the time, so to say. So I would say the decision about how, when using Zoom, if we talk about this example, today we use Zoom here. Christophe and myself, being from the cybersecurity side, are here. We use Zoom. We have installed the software. So we have, I would say, identified our risk and decided that for this specific situation, the risk is okay.
So we should always use you two guys as a benchmark. let's
I would say there
so,
were a lot of other experts as well, but I would say it's always to think about risk. So
can I ask you a very, maybe it's a personal
yes.
question, Pascal? Do you advise against any platform right now?
No, we do not advise against any platform. What we advise is to, I would say, address these three questions, and the underlying aspect which we recommend is to use platforms or software that you can host yourself. Perfect. So that's, I would say, an underlying thing about these three elements, which I would say reduces a lot of the underlying risks of these three main topics. And I would say the most easy and best way to be able to manage at best the software that you use is to use open source, because there you can look into the code, etc. Obviously, you will have need to have the competences to really evaluate the risk, but at least the possibility is given. So if you really want to address this, I would say that's the best recommendation to go for, or to have a good cybersecurity partner which can do this for you. So that's I would say the two recommendations. So about remote work, what are other lessons learned? I mentioned already a few. Europol has done a great job in promoting and drafting best practices. Here a screenshot of their flyer they sent out. That was quite in the beginning of the crisis, so they were quite fast. So yeah, when you work from remote, or when companies are remote working, that means that their perimeter to protect extends to all the different places that the people live. And so I would say every individual becomes a little bit its own cybersecurity agent. And so it has become important that we are in a digital society. So we now have seen that we can learn relatively fast to use all the tools. So now the next steps would be to use them securely. And yeah, that was it for me. So if you have questions, and I think Christophe will go more into details into the best practices of remote work and all these current special situation things.
Thank you, Pascal. Maybe we'll come back to you later with some more questions. Christophe, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, in order to elaborate a little bit on what Pascal explained, the key point is that one, despite what people can say, the funny thing for us at the moment is like what we are seeing on the pure COVID topics, we got the same on cyber. So everybody become a specialist, everybody got statistic without any valid source, but everybody has an opinion. What we are, and unfortunately, when it comes to Bogdan's question, we don't have trusted sources that reference all the case. So we know the case that come to C3 because it's a personal declaration. We know the case that go to justice because some company or some people claim something. We know some numbers because the insurance start to have some claims. But if I look at Excellium, we have an incident response team. When I look at the statistic, in January, February, and March, in 3 months, we did the same volume of investigation than last year. But since mid-March, we have only had 1 investigation. So yes, there's much more cyber attacks, I will say, but in numbers, none really in effect. So what does it mean? All the phishing that we were seeing in the past, like DHL, you lost your colleague, or like Netflix account stopping, or Apple account stopping, or PayPal account, you need to now are shifting to COVID because everybody is eager to have information regarding COVID. So Google has just published some statistics. They are blocking about 100 million of phishing every day. And I think 18 million, so 20%, nearly 20% are related to COVID. We saw also that I don't know many thousands of domains have been created around the COVID. Because if you look what happened, nothing has changed except that the context we are changing. So let's step down a little bit. In 2 or 3 days, most of the organization in Luxembourg have had to switch to a non-remote policy to remote policy, okay? And even for the regulated people, you know that we got some obligation from a legal point of view that was forcing company like banks or PSF of support to not really use that capability. So the constat is that very few companies were prepared to work from home. And that's a situation create a very big stress on the IT guys, because talking to our customer for the 2 weeks from the lockdown announcement, they just focus on making people working remotely. So you can imagine that some of them bought some laptop because there were not enough laptop to distribute to employees. Some of them have asked the employees to use their personal device, all these kind of things in order to make sure that people can start to work. And so that's where the issue is coming, because if they spend their time in making sure that they can work, and just keep in mind that 2 weeks working is a crazy situation, is something that is very difficult for an organization to maintain. You know, people are becoming crazy and exhausted and all these kind of things. So looking at the cybersecurity incident or alerts or whatever was definitely not the focus, okay? The other story outside of the story is that, I don't know why, but people like to afraid people. You know, if you look the news, that's the same. But when it comes to cyber, people think that because you are afraid, you will buy much more cybersecurity technology, services, or whatever. So the point is that, unfortunately, I will say the threat landscape didn't change. Perhaps they exploit different things, perhaps they focus on specific information, but the mass is not changing. What is changing is the situation of most of the organization and the situation of ourselves, you know. So for the last 6 weeks, you have been in your home, looking desperately for having contact or information, clicking on any links that can give you some information regarding how many deaf people in Luxembourg, where I can buy a mask or whatever. And so you have to think that cyber criminals are trying to exploit all that kind of opportunity in order to make money, okay? And because people quite often are a little bit naive, that they click on links that they should not do, or perhaps at the moment we are seeing that people are downloading Zoom installation program not on the Zoom website, so they receive a fake installation program that install perhaps Zoom, but definitely something else. And so we have that all that kind of traditional activity that is taking place. The issue is that companies have put in place temporary measures in order to allow people to access to data, to application or whatever. That creates weaknesses because it's not necessarily have been done properly, and of course can suffer from mistakes or things like that. Secondly, you are not anymore in the company, so you have to think that your RT department is not able to apply the right patches or whatever in order to correct vulnerabilities that we are discovering. So that creates a situation where perhaps we could become a little bit more weak compared to the bad guys. And the last one, you know, I don't know why, but people don't understand that the weakest point of the cybersecurity program of a company is themselves. Why you need to click on things, why you need to talk about what you are doing or putting picture of your desktop or whatever on Zoom, on Facebook or whatever, because you are providing enough information that people will exploit. So when it comes to the current situation, we will be back to office, you know, even if I think that usage will change in the future. So the key point is that like you are doing in the physical world, you have to do that for the virtual or IT world. I mean, you will reconnect your device to the corporate network. You will perhaps have to also think about cleaning the personal desktop you are using currently to access the company data, because data will remain on the laptop. So if you're not cleaning it, we don't know. We have also to think about removing all the temporary procedure and free software that you have installed and all these kind of things, because that's not normal and that's not the usage of the company. So we have to think about that. And you have also to prepare the people to come back to a, let's say, more usual way of working. That means that you have to think about what you have done in the past. For example, I'm sure some of you shared corporate information using your private email and all these kind of things because it was easier. These kind of things need to be cleaned up. So if I'm coming back,
I can hear you, Chris. But that's exactly what you said. I mean, we had this question yesterday on LinkedIn from my good friend Nicola from State Street. Is as we are working from home, and most of us are maybe using our own personal laptop. I mean, where is the barrier between the professional world and the personal world? Today, there is no barrier anymore. And how can you maybe protect both worlds, if I might say? That was his question, because you can see an increase in hacking of connected device at home, but that targets your office purpose.
Of course, but in fact, it was happening already in the past. The only issue is that now we are all remote connection users. So that's increased what we call the attack surface. So for sure, if I want to steal something, I will go where I got more opportunities than, where it's more difficult. But it's come back to, and Pascal used to say that, I don't know, many times, to your personal security and personal usage of IT. First, don't use something you don't understand. So let's come back to your discussion or to your question regarding conference application. I think that for the last 6 weeks, I'm using all of them. I'm using WhatsApp, I'm using Teams, I'm Zoom, WebEx, even Discord with my student, all these kind of things. So the point is not, is the application is secure? Because we have to think that it's a software component or someday or another one, it will be unsecure, The question is, what are the typical approach you have regarding to that? So for example, with my student, I'm not sharing very sensitive information. I'm using Zoom because Zoom is very convenient, very convivial, and I don't need to click in 10 buttons in order to have a session and they can easily onboard. Is it the safest program? I don't know, to be honest, but with the data I'm sharing with them, I'm skeptical. If I'm using my personal laptop or corporate laptop to do Zoom, no, I'm using my iPad because it's a device I dedicated to that. And the day I'm not anymore using Zoom, I will remove Zoom application from my desktop. Of course, if you are a professional with all the buzz around Zoom, I think it's not a good idea to have sensitive or customer discussion using Zoom. Even if the situation is not worse as it can be seen in the press, it's more the sensitivity of the people thinking about, okay, if you are in private banking, for sure, I will not invite one of my customers to talk on Zoom because, all the buzz. Is Zoom better secure than WebEx? To be honest, I don't know. The only things what happened to Zoom, unfortunately, is in 6 weeks, they reached 300 million people using that application. I'm not sure they did any kind of audit testing or whatever before. And that happened that some people started to look in detail what happened. And we discovered that this application was not developed with security and privacy by design approach, blah, 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 and all these kind of things. So for sure they can improve, but that does not mean that WebEx have no issue, and perhaps in 6 weeks, we will discover that WebEx has also an issue. So I think people don't have to stick to that issue. There are more to think about, okay, I'm connected, let's say 24/7 now, remotely. What kind of password am I using? Because that's also one of the key concerns. People are using passwords that are not password. And they use the same password in every application they use, So we are, of course, everybody is doing that. So you have to think about, okay, I need to change a little bit my attitude. Unfortunately, I'm not hoping that people will improve their posture because when you look at what people shared regarding their personal data, your picture on iCloud or whatever, why they will take more attention to the corporate data, So I'm a little bit skeptical, but we need to educate the people. And Pascal mentioned the term is not being secure, it's risk management, Is what I am doing, it's properly or adequate with what I am doing. For sure, if I'm sharing my corporate data in my personal email inbox, that's an issue because perhaps tomorrow I will switch from one employer to another one. That's a data leak. I'm breaching the confidentiality contract I have with my employer because now that's data remain in my personal desktop. And for sure, if I'm sharing that, I will not clean up my send folder and all these kind of things. And malicious people are just using that principle. You are lazy, you're not doing the proper things, and so they just exploit that. The only thing that will happen with the removal of the lockdown is that, unfortunately, we will see additional situation which will create some risk. For example, people lay off, company will lay off people. And so what will happen if the cleaning was not done properly? We can imagine that some data will fly around. The access of the people to the system will also be or needed to be cleaned up because some people could keep access to some system and whatever.
Okay. So I understand about the password usage, personal email versus professional email. If you have to wrap up, I mean, we have many CEOs online and are asking, okay, what kind of policy should I put in place for remote working? But let's make things very clear and simple. If you have 3 advice to give your clients of policies they should put in place or the kind of working they should put in place, what would be regarding?
I put not 3, but 4. The first one is don't be afraid. For example, we mentioned a retailer situation. I cannot tell you anything, but I can assure you that it's not linked to COVID. And that could have happened 6 months ago, 1 year later, that's the same situation. So suffering on that topics, that's not a good way to progress on the security. So don't be afraid, but measure your risk, okay? What you're talking about, what you're sharing, and or you're managing your personal IT, that's the key point. So first, use a password, which is a password. And use a password that is not the same password on all the application that you are using, And don't get me wrong, even if you put a very strong password, but if the website where you put that password have been breached, everybody knows that password, even if it's strong, okay? Because now we got thousands of millions of combination of email and password flying around that security professional get access. So even your more secure password is known. So like, Brutish, change your password on a regular time, use a password that you can remember, but please. And if you cannot remind your password, use a password vault. There's tools like that you can use. Of course, they can be also vulnerable, but, use that. For example, on my Mac, I'm using the auto generation of password for application that I'm only consulting from my Mac. It's not my bank account. It's the website I'm using for following training online or these kind of things where I didn't put any sensitive data, So password is the key. Secondly, backup and update your system. Okay. So I don't know you, but for example, I switched to too many platforms that I reset my iPad 2 weeks ago. And I just discovered that my backup was 3 months ago. So I lost, I don't know how many information. And if it was a ransomware, so a malware that was encrypted my system, the result was the same. And that's what cost us a lot, restoring the data. The third one, don't click or go anywhere, I don't know why people are doing that. So for example, on COVID, people are sharing link on Facebook or whatever, and everybody click, there's official website for that. So go to the, perhaps we have comparationists that want to look for more details, but if you do that, go on that website with a platform which is not exposed to your professional data, and if you don't know or if you're not sure, I used to say, in doubt, don't do it, and that's it. But perhaps to conclude, I think because we are talking also to startups, you have to realize things also that could be not just a risk or what, but if you look the situation, most of the startups have been much well prepared to work from remote office because that's the norm already, okay? And so you have to think that corporation that you will deal with, they want to learn about what you're doing, which tools you are using, or you're managing a remote connection and a remote meeting and all this kind of web coffee to create team building. And so it's an opportunity for the startup to demonstrate that, no, we are not unprofessional by using these kind of things. It's doing a professional job, but with that flexibility of being more open to remote work. And I think that definitely the output of the situation is the management mindset will definitely change, and the working from home will become more acceptable. So that's where there is, I think, an opportunity for the startup to demonstrate that they can be the agility component that big corporations are definitely looking for. And if you stay skeptical and don't click on stupid phishing email, and don't click on people who want to give you extra million of money because they are based in Pakistan or whatever, you will remove 80% of the issue we are facing with the cybersecurity and security. And don't be afraid. Try to be still on what happened. That's why, you know, Pascal and myself are trying to educate a little bit more, because playing with the fear will not improve the business relationship and will not generate much more business. Definitely is not the right way to go. So, but it's a big opportunity, because I will definitely see much more interaction between the big corporate. You have to realize that some corporation at the moment, 6 weeks after the lockdown, are still not able to have people working remotely. So I can suppose that most of the startup in your incubator cannot imagine that, because that's their day-to-day. But there's companies that are not able to do that. So just imagine about having a team meeting, or let's say team session, in order to create dynamics and team spirit. They just don't know how to do that. So that's where I think that we have to positive that situation. But of course, make it properly. So physically, when you will come back to the office, you will take a mask, you will use alcohol. In cyber, that's the same. Clean up your laptop, make a backup, make sure that you remove all the temporary software and access that you put in place, and come back to a more professional. But learn also of what you have done that changed a little bit the situation, and that improved also the way you are working or collaborate with third-party people.
Thank you for those best practices advice, Christophe. I'm bouncing on your don't click on stupid things. And I'm going to Pascal, because he mentioned the phishing. But how do you know it's a fake website? If I want to give some money, I do have some friends who are hypochondriacs, and they want always to learn more about the virus, how they can protect themselves. I guess they are just looking to get scared themselves. How do you know? How do you know, Pascal, if it's a phishing link or not?
Let me just support Pascal 2 seconds. So
okay.
In January, Orange in France, they make some public campaign with a big advertisement, free meter for 4 meter advertisement on get for 100 years free access to a 6G connection for free, blah, 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 and blah, 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 And so you have to click on the link and put your credential from Orange in order to get access to that. I think they reached 5,000 of people who did that, So come on, everybody speak about the 5G. So, you can click on something for having free 6G. And there's nothing free in the world, So Theresa Mover is dead, So you have to realize a little bit that, guys, free biscuit. So you have to be skeptical. And if you don't know, ask to some people who knows, So if you look for statistics, there's an official website. Start with that. I understand that, I have a sales guy who think that COVID does not exist. But I can talk to him, I say, okay, so use your iPad to go where you want and not the corporate laptop. But, it's
okay.
So Pascal can perhaps complement.
Pascal, what's your intake?
Yes, I think what Christophe mentioned is important, which is, sorry, I was on mute. What Christophe said, what was important is the fact that I would say to not take everything as granted, to I would say ask yourself questions, to think before you click somewhere or go somewhere. That's the very most important thing. And then specifically for phishing, there is one very easy thing, is the URL, the name of the website, which is in the address bar of your browser. It is something that is unfortunately not read by a lot of people anymore, because we have all these tools of search engines, etc., and we don't look at this URL anymore, so the DNS name. But that's exactly where you should look, and where you can identify if it is facebook.com. I want to hack you.ru, or if it's just facebook.com. So there you have the difference. So and this comes, I would say, a bit with knowing how the internet works. The internet works a certain way. There is this thing with the names, with the DNS names, and this is unfortunately something which I would say a lot of people have not experienced enough or have forgotten or not learned yet. So, and there is definitely a huge need to continue education about what is digital, what is in internet, how does it work? Because if you know how it works, you can more easily identify I would say the tricks and the things that the criminals try to use to abuse you.
Perfect. Okay, I've got a screen. Who's sharing the screen?
And perhaps also, you know, if we want to make a test, you know, perhaps you just have to create a website with user and password and send an email to the Luxembourg community saying that one of your startups discovered a vaccine for COVID, you know. And on the website, you put user and password, and we will see how many user and password we will collect, you know. But for sure, people will click in order to, because something that could explain a little bit why the end user are making mistakes is that when you are at home, you know, I'm in my bedroom, for example, you know, I'm safe, you know, it's my home, I know the location, and we are thinking that everything I'm doing from that location is safe. You know, I think in psychology, they call it a white something, but it's the same when you're looking on people going on a dating website, you know, they think that the most beautiful partner they are looking for is just waiting for them, you know, and everything is true and all these kind of things. So because of that, people are a little bit less looking at what they are doing, you know, in the street, you know, let's go to someone and say, hey, by the way, can you give me your credit card information? Of course, you will say, guys, you're crazy or not? But people are going to websites that they just don't know, you know. I'm using a story with my children, you know, she got 16 years old and she go to South Korean website, you know, and she order things, you know, the gangbang guys, like, you know, the music from South Korean. So it's in South Korean, you know, so I ask her, do you know what? No, I'm just ordering things because with that, I'm the king in the school, you know. But also you put your credit card information on that and you don't know what it is. And that's where I'm seeing that she's smart, because she said to me, no, it's not my credit card, it's yours. So,
so she's smart.
Yeah, but that just demonstrates that we are doing in the virtual life things that we will never do in the real life. Okay. And just because people are not skeptical enough in order to make sure that, you know, unfortunately, there's people making money on the cyber malveillance side, so it will not stop, you know. And okay. So now, with the end of the lockdown, we will have phishing around vaccine, free mask, and all these kind of things, even paper in order to cross the border, you know, because it's quite easy to get people putting credentials.
Chris, you asked me to cut you, just to move on. We still have a few minutes left. We are running out of time, to be honest, but then we're gonna take some questions from the forum, from the chat. David, I'm not sure I'm understanding your question, so I'm going to unmute you. No. David? Yeah.
David is mentioning, we saw yesterday or 2 days ago that it seems that some specific healthcare or research university being attacked by people focusing on COVID research.
So David, why are you asking this question?
Yeah, I mean, hi everybody. The question really is that we're seeing allegedly attacks coming through for people doing research into vaccines, and also the medical data that's being collected to see what the trends are. We've seen, or we've heard through the press, that the university suffered a DDoS attack. And I'm really unaware of what kind of security mechanisms they have in place. The same with the hospitals. So it's just to see if anything specific is being done, I guess, from Pascal's side, to make sure that we're protected from the research community.
Pascal.
Yes, so, well, there is maybe to tell you that on the research community side of Luxembourg, there are dedicated, I would say, teams, CERT teams at the university, but also on the side of Restena, for instance, which are, I would say, doing the operational security of the different networks. And the specific DDoS attack which was mentioned, I would say, was managed by these, and they made sure that it didn't get bigger than it already was. So I would say the teams are in place. There are people in place, obviously in research, which is a very open community. So there's a lot of sharing going on. There's a lot of open data. There is a lot of information published, etc. So I'd say one could think that it's an easy target, but the fact that all this is open, I would say there is less sensitivity or confidentiality with most of the data, not all. Which is, however, very important is an integrity, because I would say that's the basis of scientific research, that the figures need to be correct, the calculations need to be correct, theories need to validate observations, etc. So there is still a very big need of security also in research. It's I would say the attractiveness of research for criminals is less important, because what at the end of the day are criminals looking for is mainly money, and it's trying to get money out of a university or out of a research paper, whatever. I would say is more tricky. So these are the more rare cases, but probably the more complex ones, where if you talk about vaccine, if you talk about these kind of things, yes, the focus should really be put onto integrity, onto making sure that these information are real, are correct. And that's why I think there is a lot of experience and a lot of the scientific process that is in this research community, I would say, is used to manage disruptions. And so cyber disruption, I would think that yes, it will make some damage, but it will be, over time, it will be managed, and it will be flattened down relatively easily. So we are in the critical situation. Everybody is waiting for the vaccine. Yes, but science cannot be rushed. It takes its time, and it needs its time to get a real solution at the end. And if a cyber attack will make this time a bit longer, well, that's the way it will do. But we will get to the solution at a certain point of time with the real valid solutions. I'm quite sure about this.
Perfect. Thank you. I see that some questions are going to Christophe, and Christophe is answering. Christophe, do you want to add anything on what Pascal said?
Yeah, for David. David, this kind of situation is also let's say the cyber version of a traditional espionage, because here we are also talking about countries looking for. So we got that in some verticals, like for example, we know that supplier of Airbus or Airbus directly have been approached because it seems that some people in Eastern Europe or in Asiatic countries are looking for how to make the certification of some part of the plane more efficient. So we see that, but I will say that just the fact that now cyber is an additional landscape where countries fight together. And so healthcare and university are a little bit concerned for security practitioners, because they used to be open, so researchers share information together, even if it's a sensitive information. So here, perhaps more than in some sector, we need to educate a little bit more the researcher in order to explain to them that, again, the business world is not existing. And so they have to take care about what they are sharing, to who they are sharing. And if it's sensitive information, they need to take care about what they are using and how they are sharing that and distributing the information. But definitely the geopolitics is active like it was in the past. Now it's just easier. Because
anyway, you mentioned startups that are well advanced and in the cloud, but when you need to work with financial institutions, they ask you for your policies regarding cybersecurity, protection of your employees, and even attacks on the cloud, how you protect your own cloud. So one last question, because we are really running out of time. Pascal, Chris, you already mentioned some of the resources. Pascal, where can people find those information online? Or do you advise any kind of website specific?
Well, that I would say depends a bit on the information, but about cybersecurity, obviously, our website securitymadein.lu tries to, I would say, to aggregate most of the available information from Luxembourg, and then there is the more specific, I would say, things about for individuals or for children, in schools, homeschooling, which is Be Secure. Or then more related to incidents or threats on circle websites, etc. But I would say on the securitymadein.lu website, we try to aggregate most of the things.
Perfect.
Chris,
do you have any recommendation of resources?
Yeah, I will make the promotion of Pascal website because he's shy, but Be Secure is also more appropriate for the traditional end user with, let's say, topics which are more affordable or affordable or more basically explained, I will say, when it comes to phishing, fraud au président, and all this kind of concept that as an end user you can be exposed to.
So and they also support BeSecure.lu?
Yeah.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Pascal,
thank you, guys. Thank you, Pascal. Thank you, Chris. I'm going to give the floor to Anthony for the wrap up and maybe mention the next.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank
you, Pascal. Thank you, Christophe. I just want to throw out there that this week is far from being over. This Friday during lunchtime, we're bringing in our HR partners, ADAM-DU, Wrapup, and Mulberries, on an exclusive session on the employment landscape, COVID-19 and beyond. They're going to discuss the latest aid schemes and opportunities to seize in the time of crisis. And then I also want to mention and emphasize on a specific series that we're setting up where we're bringing in international top-notch speakers. The first one starts this Friday, prior to our Fintech Friday, with Vikram and Jan from the International Monetary Fund on the economics and implications of data. And then on next Monday, we host the Global Head of Regulation of BBVA on a session about regulation the day after COVID-19 and the role of technology. And next Wednesday, we host the CEO of FinLeap on building and scaling the next wave of financial services firms. Thank you very much for having been on the call, all of you. And of course, I don't want to forget to mention that we have our Fintech Friday to which you're all invited. Alex, I throw it back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. Thank you for all this information. By the way, you share your screen and we can see some of your passwords on your screen. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Guys, thank you again. It was very useful. I guess we're going to share the video, the recording with the community afterwards. And if you agree, we're going to share maybe your emails so they can reach out to you directly if they have more questions.
Yeah, and also as I proposed just on the chat, we made a note to all our customers regarding how to manage the comeback to the office from a cyber point of view. So I will be pleased to share that with you if you want to populate that with the people.
Perfect. Yeah. We'll share that with our community. Guys, thank you so much. Stay home, maybe. keep safe. Thank you and see you very soon.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Anthony.